He's unpredictable. He's relentless. He's fearless. He's smart. He's a jerk. Oh, man, what a jerk. How would you describe Kirk Minihane? He's talented. He's blunt. He's complicated.
He's the fakest tough guy I know.
He's honest.
A self-proclaimed weenie.
He's angry.
He's actually a good guy.
He's a psycho big mouth prick.
I wish we had more Kirk Minihanes.
How would you describe Kirk Minihane? Combustible, unpredictable, venomous, testy, obnoxious, selfish, polarizing, pompous.
Enough about me. Let's get to the show.
It's Kirk Minihane's Enough About Me.
On June 26th, the Auburn Police Association presents a night of comedy. It features Artie Lange, Lenny Clark, and friends. All proceeds benefit the family of Officer Ronald Tarentino Jr. MechanicsHall.org. To get more information, joining me right now is the great Artie Lange. So I've been on with John Dennis and Jerry Callahan in Boston for about 3 years, and a few months in when I started, I said, at some point you just have to say fuck it and act like the way you are. And honestly, I swear the radio model I used, and I haven't been as successful or made as much money, was Artie Lange on the Stern Show. There's no doubt about it. Today on the show, we're doing these revelations like you guys would do, and I talked about how I masturbated to several members of my wife's wedding party. Nobody around the station here does that shit, but I'm just ripping you off, essentially. That's a total Artie Lange rip. So let me just say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for my career.
Well, feel free to have that. That's not exactly like ripping off Paul McCartney and Lennon.
Well, still.
But if you can run with it, go ahead. I mean, you really want to make money. Say you jerked off to people in your wedding party.
That one guy was so smooth and so cute back then. 2002 was just
you make money doing that. Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. That's right.
But here's the thing, Artie. And part of with me with John and Jerry was I listened to that show a lot when I was younger. So when they added me to the show, I understood the dynamic. I was a massive. Now I come from Massachusetts, so I didn't hear Stern until he came to BCN at nights. I was in high school. I would get some gas. My friends and I would split gas. We'd drive around for 4 fucking hours at night where we started in Boston, because we had never heard anything like that. And when you joined the show, I could tell right away that you understood how that show worked. You right away you understood what you had to do to be good in the show.
Right. I mean, it's the same thing you just said about listening when you were a kid. I listened to Howard. I started when I was 13. He came on the air in 1982, and I was 13 that summer. My old man drove a truck to get from job to job. He climbed roofs, roofing and hanging antennas, and
right.
Just hustling, cleaning gutters and stuff, whatever he could do to make money. And he heard Howard, and he came back, and he said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, nothing. He goes, "Well, you're working with me, and I want you to hear this guy on the radio." And it was almost like a bonding thing from the beginning. So when I got on Howard, I'd been listening, and I was 31. I was 30 when I first went on the show. So we're talking 17 years later, I'd been listening. So I knew when to shut up as well as when to talk, which was just as important.
But what was different with you was I thought it was the best show ever when Jackie was there. But then I thought it got better when you joined the show. But I would say that you said more in a week than Jackie said in a year sometimes. Is that fair?
Well,
he was more of a writer, right?
What happened was, that's a good point. I mean, I didn't take over for Jackie. Benji sort of took over for what Jackie did. Benji is a great joke writer and got a lot of jokes on the air, and his mic wasn't on all the time, and he contributed on air sometimes. This is exactly what Jackie did.
Right.
With me, I kind of failed upwards. It was one of those things where I thought I was going to get fired, and then something great happened. When I first got on the show, Gary told all the comedians that were sitting in that chair trying to get the job, Gary told the same thing, because we all talked. And there's a pretty impressive group of people at the time. Joe Rogan and Chappelle and
Carolla,
David,
I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam and Jimmy Kimmel. One day, me, Jimmy, and Adam were all in the same show.
Right, I remember that. Yeah,
it was a blast. But they said, listen, when Howard's doing interviews, especially, don't talk. Your mic's not going to be on. But feel free to write jokes for him. So I would try to do that, and I was terrible at writing jokes in Howard's voice. He never used any of the jokes that I wrote, and I was starting to get, I got to figure out how to do this. And one day, Gary and Howard pulled me aside after the show and said, listen, the jokes aren't working out that you write for Howard. And I said, fuck, I'm getting fired. I wasn't even hired yet. They said, well, it's probably not working out, so we're just going to let you go, kind of like getting voted off the island. And instead they said, so we're just going to keep your mic on all the time. And I said, what? He said, if you say something funny, just say it as you. It's funny when you say it. and because you're good with your own voice. And Howard said, listen, we've never done this with anybody ever, except Rob. You're the other person whose mic is on all the time. So I'm just kind of trusting you to sort of just use your own judgment and weave into the conversation and be funny. And so it in a sense, I became a third host of the show because I sucked at writing the jokes.
Oh, no question. But what's crazy about it, though, is that you think about it from Stern's perspective, that is already the most successful radio personality who ever lived, who essentially said to somebody, yeah, you can be my coach. We're going to change the entire dynamic of the show while it's still rolling. I mean, there has to be, I don't know, a lack of ego or an intelligence or something to be able to make that move at that time.
Yeah, no, I was so, and the thing was, I was so excited to get the job. I was blinded by the pressure. I mean, all I could do was fuck it up. The show wasn't going to get more successful. All I could do was fuck it up. And at the best case scenario, what would happen is the dynamic changed, and some people would think it was for the better, which I guess Howard saw, which is big. Yeah, I mean, besides his kids, that show is the most important thing in his life, I can tell you. And he was putting it in the hands of someone who just came on a few months ago. He saw something in me that I didn't even see, and I just went with it. Because, again, I was too excited to see the pressure, and I just told stories and jokes. And for eight years, he didn't give me a note off the air. It just worked. And my career skyrocketed in a way like I can't even tell you. I went from playing Yuck Yucks to Carnegie Hall. It was insane. So I became a co-host of the biggest radio show ever in about a month.
Yeah, I wonder that. So our show, we're on the same time you guys were on. So we start at 6, we end at 10. We're a sports show. We do a bunch of other shit too. But the rest of the day, there's some text going back and forth, some ideas. What was the show? You guys would end the show at 10:30, 10:45, whatever. Right. What was the rest of the day like a day in 2004 or whatever, say? Was there any interaction, or did you just meet up again the next day?
What happened was, like, when the dynamic changed in a sense too when I got there, where it was very little preparation, like very little pre-written bits, unless Benji or Freddie would come up with something.
Right.
Because and I think Howard was happy with that too, because Howard was with Beth and having a little bit more of a nightlife than he ever had in the city, and he was really, really enjoying that. He was enjoying being a single guy, and with this beautiful girlfriend and doing the town a little bit, which he never sort of did before, with a beautiful Manhattan apartment. And I don't think he wanted to be there till 9 p.m. at night writing bits. So I think the other thing, timing in life is everything, that I benefited from was, I excel at sort of not preparing and just winging it,
right.
just having a fun conversation and all off the top of your head. And Howard, at that time in his life, was wanting that to be what the show was.
Well, what's funny for me... Oh, no, I'm sorry, Artie, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, so there was never... I had this amazing job, getting famous and rich, and I had no preparation, and that's the way Howard wanted it. He said, purposely, I don't want Artie to be in on any preparing we do, because I just want him to react on the air naturally. And the pressure was, of course, I had to be funny spontaneously, and thank God that was the case most of the time. Thursday afternoons, we'd have a pitch meeting where we pitch ideas to Howard, like, World's Meanest Listeners Concert, whatever it was. Let's go to Vegas and I'll play basketball against a chick. Right. Broad ideas.
Right.
So I'd go to that Thursday meeting. Other than that, there was nothing, just what you heard on the air for me,
what's funny is, I've listened forever, and I listen to the 101 stuff now all the time, a lot more than 100, to be honest. And the old sort of bits where there was a lot of applauding and stuff, I'm still not a big fan of. My favorite moments of the Stern Show is always, and my guess is they were yours as well, is just the fighting within the show. At what point did you realize, listen, every fucking thing is in play. There's nothing I can hide.
Right. Well, I mean, I made that decision sort of on my own. I mean, no one was pushing it, but I did reveal stuff that I couldn't even believe I revealed. Yeah, it started from the first time I got on the show as a guest. Norm sort of ambushed me on the air and didn't tell me that he was going to bring up that I got kicked off of Mad TV for cocaine.
Right.
And I at that point, it's funny, there's certain decisions you make in life, and I could have dummied up and said, I don't know what Norm's talking about, and Howard could have said, okay, I don't want to talk about it, let's move on. And I could have just sat there like a dummy for not saying anything. Or I could have just said, fuck it, I'm going to do the Richard Pryor thing, where I'm just going to try to make comedy out of tragedy and take all these crazy, awful things that happened in my life and turn them into a career and money and art and my form of art, whatever it is. And I just said, I was as honest as I could be, and I used that the rest of my, decade that I was there. There were times where I'd get out on 6th Avenue and people, like a UPS truck driver, would be yelling, did that shit really happen to you? Did you really do coke in a pig outfit and shit your pants? And I go, well, wow, maybe I was a little too honest. It's like your psychiatrist is 20 million people.
At what point, so you were rolling, you went to Sirius. At what point did the show become, and I listened almost every day, and the show sort of became, the subplot became sort of the Artie drama. At what point did you not want to do the show anymore, or was there ever that point?
There was never a point where I subconsciously, I couldn't have, I didn't want to do anything after a while because of heroin.
Right.
I became a full-blown heroin addict. And, I had a lot of trouble with cocaine in the past and other stuff, but, the opiate addiction, it's like the hell Prince was just in. It starts to just run your life.
And what year is that? What year is that start?
I started doing heroin in summer of '04.
Okay, so you're still on. Yeah, go ahead.
It didn't become an issue, a problem until I had until like 07, 08, middle of 08.
Right.
When I got back from Afghanistan, I started ramping up. After I played Carnegie Hall in 06, I ramped up the theater gigs, and my road schedule was insane. I mean, nobody could have handled it. I got addicted to the money. I was making $100,000 a night doing stand-up, and I couldn't turn it down. But I had every vice on the planet, so I started taking pills to come up, pills to come down, and I was on the road, and I was taking like 80 Percocet a day. And this manager, this comedy club said you should take heroin. You should do heroin. It's better for your liver. Which is the title of a chapter of my book. He actually said that.
Right.
And I went back to the hotel room that night. I snorted a couple lines of heroin, and I laid back on the pillow, and it was so euphoric. There was nobody else in the room.
Are you so fucked up?
I said out loud, I'm in trouble. I said it came out of my mouth.
Are you so fucked up at that point that when that manager says that to you, do you think that makes some sense?
Complete sense.
Yeah.
It was like someone at the Mayo Clinic told me it.
Right.
He might as well have been a doctor. So I chased it for a while, but my life it was so amazing for a while though too. Like the first 7 years I had on that show of the 8.5 I was on it, I would wish on any comedian.
Well, it's a rock star lifestyle almost, right?
Listen, when we went into Atlantic, when we went into Las Vegas to do those shows, I can't imagine the Rolling Stones getting any better at treatment. There was a strip club across the street that was getting so much business because we were there. I did an appearance there one night, and 2 strippers came up to me and said to me, as if they were telling me, if you need a cup of coffee, come over here. They said, listen, we appreciate this business so much, and we're packed every night. If you're stressed over there, just come here. If you want a blowjob, just tell us.
Well, that's a very reasonable request, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, I was running across the highway every 20 minutes like I was going to the gym. I would just get up and run, and they'd see me, and I go, do you mind? They go, no problem. Tammy will blow you. And they would blow me and wouldn't accept any money, and they would say thank you, and like a professional blowjob, like the Jiffy Lube. The chick should have been wearing a mechanic shirt with her name on the side, Tam. And I probably got the first week I was there, and I never said this. I was dating a girl that ended in a fiery wreck, so I don't mind being honest now. But the first week that I was there with the Stern Show, I fucked like a dozen strippers that were all like 23 years old, and just without even a rap, they just were layups.
Is there part of you while you're doing this, you're thinking, I can't fucking believe this is happening?
Yes, every part of it.
When does that stop? When you stop feeling that way, does it kind of change at all? It's a stupid question, but if you're getting a blowjob, at what point does a great blowjob from a great-looking stripper become routine, I guess, is my question.
Routine's a strong word. I don't know if I'd ever say it.
You know what I mean.
It never became to get a cup of coffee at my favorite 7-Eleven in the morning. I don't know. It's funny. There was a porn star and I can't say who it was, but she was young and very pretty.
It's
and
Blue Iris, yeah.
Yeah. Blue Iris, figure 1931 Blue Iris. And I was down at the Delano in Miami, in South Beach. I was doing a stand-up show. And the thing is, Howard never came on the road.
Right.
So when I went on the road, I was Howard. Like in other words, Freddie was married, had a beautiful baby. He wasn't living that lifestyle. You know, Benji didn't really have the fame I had, and Gary was married. So if Howard wasn't around, which was a lot because he didn't travel, I was Howard.
But you would bring whether say Howard was the A guy, you were the B guy. You would bring some other lower level guys with you on the show, right?
Yeah, but in other words,
but you were the big guy, right? Yeah.
Right, because Howard wasn't there.
Right.
And, the next time, everybody knew I sat 2 feet from him, and I co-hosted the show, and I could tell a stripper, I could mention your website on the show. That was like Mecca, and forget it. It was again, I was never a ladies' man. This was a surreal thing. And it was 5 a.m. on the beach in front of the Delano, and this porn star gave me a blowjob, and we laid back on the beach, and the sun came up. And I said, my life, if my life was a movie, it should say the end. It should just say the end right now, because it's not going to get better, and I'll fuck this up. You
should have just walked right into the ocean right there.
I should have. That's a good point. I should have tied the heaviest thing to me, which would have been the stripper.
Now that's a way to go out.
Yeah, because her life didn't get better either. I should have tied her to my ankle, and both of us just walked in.
So you're claiming that the porn star stripper who gave you a blowjob and collected your semen, you're saying that was also the high point of her life?
I would say not high point, a strong word. I think she thought it was going to get better.
just didn't happen.
For me, it couldn't get better, and she was hoping it would get better. That was the difference. And but neither, again, if it said the end, it would have been great. But I kept living my life, and it got worse.
Well, here's the thing. So, like I said, I worked the same hours that you worked forever. So I'm up, I'm up at 4:30 every day. And I used to drink. I don't drink anymore. I stopped drinking. I stopped using drugs for 12 years.
Yeah,
but
wow.
I can't even, Artie, imagine drinking a little bit and doing a little bit of drugs and doing this job. You're doing drugs at a fucking Babe Ruthian and 1920 level, and you're showing up for a morning show. By the way, the most successful morning show in radio history. Every single day. And I know some days you weren't there, but how did you function through the show, and how did the other people not know, or did they know?
Well, I mean, they knew I wasn't teaching a spin class when I left. But again, Howard always said, up until that last 8 months or so, Howard always said, look, everybody tells me Artie's got a problem. First of all, Artie works for me. He's my friend. I care for him, but we're not brothers. Artie shows up every day and is hilarious. He does his job, so I have no problem.
But did you believe that he didn't know for that long?
He didn't know the extent of it. Yeah. There's no way he could have. And, Howard, I get mad when people say Howard didn't help me. He did. I mean, people don't know what happened off the air. I mean, Howard got me therapist through his therapist. He got me into rehab. Howard at one point said, this came out on the air, he said, look, Art, go take as much time as you need to get better. When you come back, you have a job. I mean, what else could you ask the boss to say? And I tried, and I left. I mean, but I just made everything into comedy. What was nobody individually was an enabler, but the show life itself was, because I knew that the setup that I had helped create, the new sort of version of the show that was part of my creation, was everything could be a joke. So if I left, like one time I told Gary I need 18 days or 28 days to go to rehab in Florida. After 8 days, I left and I went to the Satai in Miami, and I got a suite, and I called the show with a stripper in the room with the room service guy bringing up Jack Daniels at 8 in the morning, and we made a half an hour, bit about it, and everybody loved it, and every caller eventually would want to talk about me just because I was the only one living that kind of interesting life off the air. I was a comedian with a drug addiction, doing stand-up on the road and partying like that obviously people would call and go, what happened with Artie this weekend? And I think, Howard rightfully so thought that was getting a little much, and it just sort of organically happened. There was no way to stop it. It was a monster rolling, and eventually it hit a mountain because it had to. But
I mean, if you hadn't tried to commit suicide, would you have been fired from the show?
I don't. It would. Well, at that point, I was forced to do the rehab thing. They were going to take no more bullshit. They were going to say, look, you have to do this, and hopefully maybe I would have taken a few months and gotten better. But I do think, though, I probably wouldn't have went back in the sense that I think Howard, in his mind, already had the changes he wanted to make that the show has become now in his head. And quite frankly, neither one of us would have thought I would have fit into that.
You wouldn't have worked with the way it is. You just wouldn't have, right?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, like the interview with Gwyneth Paltrow, who in Gwyneth Paltrow's life is going to let me within a foot of her? Like she's talking about a $200 green drink and the Hamptons and taking a special Lithuanian fucking cycle class.
Well,
and I'm a foot from her like the Grimace going, show us your tits. I mean, it's not going to work. And I wouldn't have wanted to do it either. So I think I just would have got phased out of it.
What do you think? I mean, my criticism, and Howard actually went at us about a year ago because Jerry Callahan and I are massive Stern fans from the old days. I got to be honest, when I hear him interview Gwyneth Paltrow, or I hear him interview Melissa McCarthy, or I hear him interview Sally Field or Carol Burnett, or he talks about how great Kathy Lee Gifford is, or he does this, or he just. I wonder what happened to the old Howard, and I know you and John had a long conversation about, I don't know, maybe a year or so about it too. It's not a show for me anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, Howard is 62 years old, and I think he just evolved into something different, and I think he subconsciously or very consciously wants to leave behind an amazing library of celebrity interviews, which he's great at doing. The only issue I think that I agree with that the fans might have is that it sort of seemed like he was just duping everybody for a long time. It always seemed like he was goofing on show business because he hated it and was really rebellious. And it sort of seems now like he just wanted to be a part of it, which is that's 180 for people. I think a lot of us. I'm the kind of Stern Show guy, both being a fan and being on the show, who would rather goof on Jennifer Aniston's new husband rather than be friends with him. And that's where I don't get it. But the rest, obviously he's not going to put, a 21-year-old girl on a Sybian anymore. I think he'd seem kind of sleazy doing that. And it's his show. He can do what he wants. I think the anger that he seems to have towards whatever he thinks the regular guy is, that's a little weird. But
I don't get that. I don't know where that's he was the guy in the basement for years shitting on the people that he hangs out with now.
Right. Well, I mean, look, he evolved. That's what happens. That's what America is.
Right.
It's just that I don't know, like there seems to be a hostility there that I don't think the fans deserve. But at the same time, I think the fans should be appreciative of what he gave them for so many years and sort of respect the fact that he changed. And he's got a right to do that. And if they want to hear the old show, they, of course, should sign up for the Artie Quitter podcast.
Absolutely. ArtieQuitter.com, right?
Yeah, I started, doing this podcast, and I never thought I could have as much fun as I'm doing. I mean, it's truly uncensored.
I just signed up. I signed up about 3 months ago. It's great. Absolutely great.
It's just fun to just truly say whatever the hell you want. And I could never have changed because I'm not capable of it. I would seem retarded and very phony telling Ellen I like her dancing in the beginning.
Well, I hear you. I heard you and Gilbert on Gilbert's podcast a few months ago, and you were doing the Tracy Morgan, and it was wild. Right. It was like the old news days. Artie, if you came back into a radio show and did that at 6:02 in the morning, you'd be fucking fired at the first commercial break.
I know, and that's it. I don't know. Gilbert's not allowed on either.
I think he's the greatest guest in the history of the show.
Yeah, a lot of people would agree with that. I certainly did. I thought that before I got on the show, during, and I still do after. But And the fact that he's not there is, come on, that's I respect everything Howard has done as change and become successful.
You don't think
come on.
You don't think Gilbert Gottfried's as funny as Andy Cohen? How dare you say that?
Andy Cohen? Who's that? Oh, is he on that show?
Well, he's been on. He's like a Bravo fucking guy. I don't know.
Oh, come on.
When is Artie Lange going to be a guest on the Howard Stern show?
It'll never happen.
Why?
It'll never happen. If he asked me to do it, I would go because he deserves. I would do anything Howard asked me to do because I was brought up by a guy who would tell me, look, that motherfucker gave you a job when you needed it, and I don't give a shit what has happened. You do. If he asks you a favor, you do it. Not that it would be a favor. If he asked me something, I would do it because Howard is responsible for almost everything I have in my life post Mad TV, and I would go, but I know he wouldn't do it. He'll never ask. It's very weird. So I don't think you'll ever.
When was the last time you talked to him?
The last time I actually spoke to Howard was in the hospital room with Robin. Robin had just gotten her operation. I'm going to say 2012. Mm-hmm. And I went to go see Robin because I always had a special relationship with her. I love Robin, and she was always very generous to me. And I said she just had the biggest operation of her life, and it's life or death, and I have to go see her. So I spontaneously went to see her at a hospital in New York. She had a private room, and I knew how to get up there. And the guy, security guard, was a fan, and he said, "Oh man, he's up there." I go, "Okay," I knew what he kind of meant. And it was spontaneous. I didn't know Howard was going to be there, but I walked in. It was Howard and her, and I hadn't seen Howard since the day I left the show before I stabbed myself and everything. It was just as if I saw him 2 minutes ago. He said, we got to make Robin laugh. That's what he said to me. So we put everything aside for that, and the three of us spoke as if we were on the air for an hour. We just laughed like crazy, and it was like nothing ever happened. And then Howard said, "I got to leave." And I gave him a hug, and I said, "I'm sorry for everything, man." He goes, "Well, how you doing?" I said, "I'm all right. I'm working again." And he goes, "Well, that's good, and I'll see you." And he left, and I spoke to Robin for about another hour, and I haven't talked to him since.
Have you tried to contact him? I mean, I heard his answer to your thing with John. It just seems like there's a lot of stuff. I'm just, as a listener, I'm confused.
I called him 4 times, probably 3 or 4 times. I left voicemails, and he never called me back.
What's your thought for why is that? Do you think?
I just don't think he wants to deal with me in his life anymore. I think he's got a very, very complicated life, and I think he's happy I'm okay. And but I don't think he's prepared to just deal with it anymore. And I understand that, but where I'm pissed off is, we were really tight on the air and off the air, very, very close. We were friends, and went through a lot of battles together. And for a decade, I sat 2 feet from that guy, and we had what some people think are the funniest moments in radio history.
No question.
And he was the best comedic partner I've ever had. Even though he made a lot more money than I did, me and him riffing together was so much fun. And I think just all that, maybe I earned 10 minutes off the air to just let me say in person, "I'm sorry," and hear him out, and then hug and say goodbye. Like, that never happened. That closure never happened.
As a listener to the show, for me, and I think maybe you even said this in the thing with Stuttering John, was when you guys had that weird bro fight, it felt like, as a listener, it was almost done right after that.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. It never was the same after that, because what I never wanted to become was a sycophant. I always had this insecure thing of, like, I said, look, I'm funny enough to where I don't have to be a snitch. I don't have to be part of these stupid bits where, if something happens, it'll be under my control because of a story. I can be funny, that type of thing. So when he pulled this bullshit with me with something, I said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. And that's what that was about. That was that underlying anger of the drugs and everything aren't going to turn me into like some intern.
Right.
And his anger was sort of like, well, fuck you. You're turning my place of work into a place like a drug den, and I'm trying to roll with it here, and it's taking over the show. So both of those things came to the surface, and that was genuine anger. And when I said the Pelican thing, it was over. No one ever said that, and I was out of line, quite frankly. But when I said, when he said, "Do you think I look like a pelican?" and I said yes, there was no going back. It was a matter of time.
So you said do you regret, in the life of the show, you would say things like, you called Mike, a faggot, and you talked about AIDS, and you talked about this or that or retard. Is there anything that you look back and you say, boy, if I could do it again, I probably have to walk that one back? You get one mulligan other than the Pelican one. In all the years, what do you take one?
Well, I've said publicly the high-pitched Mike thing. The reason I said that was because, he talked about my sister and my father in ways that, look, I come from a neighborhood where you just don't talk about somebody like that. My old man, I took a lot of shit, and I gave a lot of shit, but I'm like, look, okay, if that's the game, if he's going to call my sister a slut for no reason at all, and my father say he was happy because my father fell off a fucking roof,
Jesus.
I'm going to go there with the gay stuff. I should have chosen my words differently. That was what I said was pretty harsh, and it should have been more personal about him.
The story about him going to Disney by himself, though, is one of the classic Stern stories of all time, though.
Listen, again, that's where Howard knows what's going on. Clearly, you know the game. Howard's like, okay, Artie, that's offensive. So if when high-pitched Mike talks, you're not allowed to laugh. And, of course, that created moments where when he came out, he played a Brian McKnight song.
Right.
And I put my face. Howard knew it was going to happen. High-pitched Mike's like, can Artie leave the room? And Howard's like, of course not, because it's what's going to be funny about the whole fucking thing.
But that's one thing. It's Stern Howard would lead you to places where he would almost walk you into insanity.
Well, of course, he knew what was going on. So I just played into it. I'm like, while he's coming out, you're going to hear me laughing in the back. And that's exactly what Howard wanted.
Has there been any, since you finished the show to now, has there been any terrestrial traditional radio opportunities for you, or are you considered radioactive?
Well, yeah, I actually had the direct TV show I did with Dick DiPaolo was on regular radio.
Oh, that's true. That's right. Yeah,
I ended up hating it.
Yeah. How come?
I hated hitting 8-minute posts, and I didn't know anything about it. It's because I was on the biggest radio show ever. I didn't know anything about radio.
Right. Well, they had their own rules, yeah.
Right, so I didn't like it, and I was going to leave at the end of 3 years anyway because I was driving me crazy, and I thought there was an opportunity in Sirius, without question, if I had done it a certain way, and I didn't like that, they could sort of still censor me in the sense that I work for a corporation. I could curse, but they still could say you can't talk about this. And I was about to sign a deal there, and I hated that. And I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna try a podcast. I'm gonna see what that's like." And thank God I did that, man.
It's a good living?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I charge $7
I know you're charging me $7 fucking bucks a month for this thing.
Well, it's a quarter a day, and I some guys were like 38 years old going, I love you, but I can't swing the money. Right. And I go, tell me anything else. Tell me I'm not funny. I suck. If you're 38, you can't swing the money. That really makes me feel bad for you. Like what's going on over there?
Right.
And because everyone said, very few people get anybody to pay a dime for a podcast, but because you were on Stern for 10 years and liked on the show, you might have a following. And my overhead is like $250,000 a year. I pay a PayPal person, and I pay a producer. And I think the last time I looked at it, I think I have 11,000 people signed up.
Excellent.
So, it's making about. If you do the math, I'm doing all right.
And you continue to be a wildly inappropriate, politically incorrect follow on Twitter, which I love as well.
Yeah, why not? It's like, again, if they're going to let me say shit like that as a comedian, it's almost like I never understood comics who try to play by the rules. I don't get that.
Is it a scary time? Is it a scary time to be a comic?
Well, in some ways it is, but in some ways it isn't, because there's definitely a rebellious group out there that will pay money to hear it different. But as a comedian, we're supposed to be people who aren't playing are doing it the wrong way. We're living life in a rebellious way. You're supposed to go to a comedy club and sort of watch a person like you're going to a zoo and acting inappropriately. Like, you're the one who's got to, work at an insurance company in a cubicle, and your boss follows you on Twitter. If you say something inappropriate, you might get fired. And I'm the guy who doesn't have to play by those rules. Why would any comic play by rules? It makes no sense.
It feels like the last place, though. But when you go see, if they remade the Bad News Bears like 7 or 8 years ago, and it was 50,000% less fucking funny than the original because it had no balls. Like, they're scared. You couldn't make Blazing Saddles today. You sure as hell couldn't make All in the Family today. I feel like stand-up comedy with stand-up comedians who aren't afraid is sort of the last place where you can do that.
Yeah, these young kids who come to comedy clubs, some of them aren't prepared for what they're about to see.
Right.
They're trained on all this, like, what's hate speech, what is it? They don't listen to context, and there's a self-destructive thing going on. Like, I was talking to David Tell about this, about these young kids that come. It's almost like I'd rather offend them than make them laugh, and that's a bad place for a comic to go. I get more of a high off of making them upset than making them laugh. That's a very dangerous thing to do.
How many stand-up dates do you do a year now?
Well, as many as I can. I'm very busy right now because I do the podcast and I'm shooting this thing for HBO.
That's the Judd Apatow thing?
Yeah, so I'm shooting for the whole summer because it was supposed to be one episode. It turned into almost every one in the series, which,
awesome.
Believe me, I'm grateful for that. But it's good money, but my stand-up money is still the best, and I try to do 2 a month on the road theaters. So.
But is it when you do these, it sounds like you get a packed schedule. Do you get concerned that you're going to fall into the same trap that you fell into when you were too busy before?
Well, the old me would have done the stand-up and the Apatow thing. The new me is like, I can't do the stand-up.
So how do you stay clean? What do you do? What's your process?
It's all meetings for me. It's all AA meetings. It's like a mathematical equation. If I go to 4 AA meetings a week, I'll be okay. If I miss it, I won't. And I've fallen off the wagon here and there. And the thing is, if I fall off the wagon, I can't. If it's longer than 2 days, I'm going to have to go to rehab.
How long you been clean for?
I fell off the wagon in Pittsburgh in February. So,
couple months.
But I got 2 months now, 2.5 months.
Yeah. And do you feel like do you know when it's coming, or does it just show up?
Oh no, it's very spontaneous.
So it could happen tonight.
It could happen when I hang up the phone.
Right.
It probably won't, though.
Right.
It's at least an 18-minute drive to Newark. So give me 12 minutes to shower. Yeah,
it's the easiest time in history to be a sex addict and a drug addict, though.
It seems that way. It's especially with the pills, they're very available, and the sex goes along with them.
Social media and everything. You can do anything. We had to work for it 30 years ago.
I know Tinder grinding. I do a joke where I go, I'm getting good at social media. I use Tinder, Grindr, and Uber all at the same time. A gay guy watches me fuck a chick in the back of a town car. But you're right. Everybody, there's a lot of kids who live healthy lifestyles with not a lot of dope, but they're very promiscuous. These young kids, they're willing to go.
Well, can you imagine them being in high school, right? Imagine being in high school when we were. You're about my age or a little older. And some girl you went to high school with, these girls that you loved, that you thought about all the time, sent you a fucking naked picture of herself.
I know.
Your head would have exploded. I mean, it's a different universe.
I would have to mail them my orgasm. I wouldn't get out the house. I would not make it out the house. I'd have to keep a UPS envelope and just go, look, this is the cum. I didn't make it to the door.
So you're going to be doing the show on May 20. In June 26th. I'm looking at May 22nd is when Officer Tarentino died. Right away, you got right on social media, said, let's make this happen, and you guys have made it happen.
Yeah, you talk about social media, the good and the bad. This is one of the great things about Twitter and stuff like that. I saw it on the news, and I saw you had a wife and 3 kids. I got so fucking mad. Look, I've had a lot of run-ins with the cops, man. I've been arrested like 20 times in my life, and I'm the first to say it was always my fault. I was always guilty. I was always treated fairly. I mean, they're the only thing between us and chaos, man. And look, in San Bernardino, the cops became the United States Army. Mm-hmm. That's what they became, those guys, for an afternoon. And again, you see a cop in New York City giving somebody a ticket for doing something wrong, and there's 15 millennial kids with their phones out like they're Francis Ford Coppola taking fucking like they're fucking directors, waiting for the cop to not to forget to cross a T on the fucking ticket and go, look what he did, it's corruption. It makes me sick. How do you expect the cop to do anything? How do you expect the criminal to do anything? Nobody can move anymore. You know, you can imagine if John Gotti's crew, somebody said to him, I opened up an account on Twitter, he beat him to death with a bat. Cops got to move a little bit. You got to give them room to breathe. They might not do everything perfectly to catch someone who raped your mother. So let them do their job. And we got to protect them. And this guy seemed like a good man, you know, a kid going into the Army. And, you know, my mother, that kid is the same age I was when my mom became a widow. And we were broke. And I knew it would have been helpful if someone helped us out. So I went out and I said, look, I'm willing to do a show if anybody in Boston can put it together or help me. And within a half an hour, there were people calling me back, and we set this up that quick. These people are amazing. And
Lenny Clark's going to be part of it, too. It's going to be, Scoot does a shitload of charity work, as you know. It's going to be great night. It's going to be a lot of laughs, and I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. And I appreciate you, Artie, taking some time for me. And like I said, I can't tell you enough, you know, how much you've meant for what I do. Even sometimes during the show, it happens every once in a while. Somebody will say something, and there'll be a pause, and I'll say, my best Artie Lange impression possible, I'll say, Christ. Like you would always say, like you would always say on the Stern Show, and it's a total ripoff. So you can fucking nail me to the wall if you want.
Enjoy it, brother. Enjoy it. I got nice of you to say, but you're there because you're funny, probably.
You're the greatest fucking comedian in radio history, Artie. I really do mean that, and I hope, and down deep, I hope that you wind up on that Stern Show again someday if you want to, and I hope that you stay clean and sober. I'm rooting for you. I know you will, and I'll see you at the event in June.
Yeah, everybody should come out and help us out. Officer Tarentino, certainly, we got to help them. And for the record, Bill, I'll give you this. Deep down, I hope Howard asked me to come back. For the fans and everybody, I'd love one more time on the air to get that closure. Don't think it's going to happen, but I hope it does. And thanks for the kind words, my man. And I look forward to seeing you June 26th, okay?
All right, Artie. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to Enough About Me with Kirk Minihane. If you want more great podcasts, it's pretty easy. You can go to the WEI mobile app. You can go to Stitcher. You can go to iTunes. You can look up Enough About Me with Kirk Minihane. You can find the ones with Sean McDonough, Bob Ryan, Dan Shaughnessy, David Portnoy. There'll be more. And what you can do when you like them, you write a review. That'll help us out a lot. You give us a rating. We can help you. You can help us. Get that done. Do it right now.
Security threats are everywhere. But with Xfinity XFi, you're notified of threats to your in-home Wi-Fi network, so all your connected devices are protected. That's simple, easy, awesome. Go online, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit today. Restrictions apply.